All right, I think we're good to go.
Right. Pop on back to that.
Yeah, in theory. All right, now one more time.
Okay. All right. Hello. Welcome to part 2 of our news and media literacy session for the first week of May, where Jonathan Werner and myself will be talking about helping students become critical consumers and creators of news and media. I'm Kate Meyer. I am one of 5 MLTI ambassadors working for the Maine State Department of Education. And when I am not doing this, I am an English teacher and a design thinking teacher at Mount Desert Island High School in Bar Harbor.
I'm Jonathan Werner. I'm second of 5 ambassadors, and I work outside of DOE at the middle school in Cape Elizabeth. I teach a combination of technology integration skills. I run the makerspace and came to that prior to that as an English teacher, and developed a lot of my passion about this subject as English teacher and also then as a part-time librarian as we merged our technology integration and library resources at Cape. So I got to be very familiar with and very passionate about talking about this subject.
And so yesterday, if you caught Jonathan's video, part 1, finding and using credible news sources, he talked about what that is, why we should be teaching it, and started sharing some great resources to help you develop your own professional learning around news and media literacy to help you get more comfortable with that topic. And today what I'm going to do is show you what Common Sense Media Education has put together for educators and students around this topic. We're going to dive into some lesson plans, and I'm going to show you a tech tool that I really love that can help enhance how you teach this to your students. And then coming up, next week, we'll be looking at the 4 factors of fair use, and we'll be looking at teaching that to 7th graders. And the following week, we'll be looking at reacting to breaking news, and we'll look at the lesson plans offered by Common Sense Media to 8th graders. And then finally, we'll be wrapping up this series with responding to hoaxes and fakes. And I, again, will be going over ways to teach that, and we'll be looking specifically at your 9th graders.
As Kate takes over screen sharing, one of the things that I'm really impressed by in Common Sense is that, as you'll see, it's divided by grade, as Kate mentioned, but there's a nice sort of band of grades that works for this. And we chose these 4 grades because they're middle school. This is MLTI's project and obviously geared towards middle school. But if you go back and look at the resources I shared yesterday, many of those are geared towards high school students. And as you'll see, there are Common Sense education lessons from K through 12, but this is sort of their scope and sequence, and you should feel free. They welcome your modifications to them. And so one of the key things that they've emphasized for me is that those grades are sort of guidelines, not hard and fast. This is a 6th grade lesson.
Perfect. So we're going to jump right into Common Sense Education. I am already logged in my educator account, and I'm just going to make sure that I am in my For Educators tab. And again, this is a massive website that is filled with incredible resources. I'm just going to be showing you just a sliver of what they have to offer, but it is pretty amazing. So under this digital citizenship tab, I am going to go to lesson plans. And as Jonathan said, they do offer lesson plans for K-12, so you can scroll all the way through. So all of these topics that we're talking about, even though I'm only going to be specifically talking about 6th, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade, they do offer lessons in every grade around each of these topics. And so you see the 6 pillars across the top here, and we're going to dive into news and media literacy. So I can either look down this feed here by grade and then find what they're offering for news and media literacy, or I can just click on this tab and it will take me to the curated list of news and media literacy lessons. And so that's what I'm going to do. I've clicked on that tab, and at the top, you've got the kind of the big why around students being critical thinkers and creators. And if this is a topic that you want to know more about, you can always click as an educator right on learn more about this topic before you even dive in. So I'm going to kind of take this from the perspective of an administrator came to you, English teacher, and asked you to teach a lesson on news and media literacy tomorrow. And I'm going to show you how easy that is to do. So maybe I know nothing about news and media literacy, and I didn't catch Jonathan's episode yesterday. So I'm just going to click on learn more about this topic. It gives a nice broad overview, talks about their instructional approach, kind of the how and why, reminds me that we are looking at being critical thinkers and creators. And then I can pop right in to the lessons. So that's what I'm going to do because my administrator needs me to teach my 6th graders tomorrow about news and media literacy. So I've read those 3 paragraphs. I'm going to scroll right down to the 6th grade and find out what they have to offer. And they've got this great lesson plan on finding credible news. So I'm going to click on that.
One second, just go back up to the top 1 sec.
Yes.
One of the things that I really like about the way this is organized, if you haven't divified into here, is that each of the 6 categories have this band that you see across the top. They're color coded, but they have the essential question as well. So I think it's to learn more about this topic. I apologize, I'm having you go back where you just were. There we go. How can I be a critical consumer and creator of news and media? So we drew from that question to formulate these 4 weeks of sessions, but you'll see that in each of the 6 pillars, each of the 6 categories, there is this central question that's provided. So whether or not this is the one you undertake, everything Kate's going to take us through applies to all 6 areas. And if you go back, this is where I've spent my last 5 sessions of professional development videos on those other 5 pillars. But this one, news and media literacy, comes up so frequently, and it's in so many different classes that I thought it deserved some extra time and an extra voice. So pairing up with Kate's been a great way to be able to really dive into this one that has so much broad appeal. And as she said, of course, it's never happened to us that someone knocks on the door. It's like, just tomorrow, and if you don't mind. Of course, I'd be delighted to. I'm so impressed with, of course, you can take this above and beyond, but as you'll see, you can literally read the script. You've never seen this before. And that's the case in all 6 of those categories. So worth noting that as she describes this, it is in any of the subject matter, even though, as she said, we're focusing on this particular grade and band.
Yeah, that's perfect. Thank you. Because all the pillars, they're all organized the same way. So it does, like Jonathan said, the content changes, but how it's organized and what they do with it is the same. So we'll look at the 6th grade. Again, there's another essential question here. How do we find credible information on the internet? They do have, they'll kind of highlight their featured resource. In this case, it is a slide deck that integrates into your Google Drive, which I will show you in a minute how easy it is to work with their slide decks. Sometimes it's a video that is over here, and so that's something that you can preview as an educator really quickly. So again, you've got your learning objectives right here at the top. So you're going to go into your lesson tomorrow knowing exactly what it is that you are aiming to teach your students. So they're going to learn reasons that people put false or misleading information on the internet. And Jonathan talked about kind of 3 different categories of false information in his video yesterday. Students are going to learn criteria for differentiating false news, fake news from credible news, and students are going to practice evaluating the credibility of information that they find. And even if you don't know anything about news and media literacy, you've got some key vocab right here. So these are the key vocabulary terms that you're going to be sharing with your students. And if you want to familiarize yourself with them as Common Sense Media uses them, you can just click right on show definitions, and you've got that all at your fingertips. I also love that over here on the right, there are standards. So you've got Common Core standards for ELA, you've got the CASEL standards, you've got the AASL standards, and you've got the ISTE standards. And as you're going to see, everything that I click on is just clean and clear and fast. So when I click on that, it's going to pop up all of these standards for me. Oh my gosh, I definitely need to work on RI6 with my students, and this lesson fits that. So great, I can check off a couple boxes with this lesson that I've been asked to teach tomorrow. Or, you know, if my school is following some other standards, you've got all of the crosswalks done here for you. So you can easily pick out the standards that work for your situation and what it is that you're doing with your students. So that's what you're going to find at the top of your lesson plans. This lesson plan. Yeah, go ahead.
I haven't seen the term or encounter crosswalking. Can you describe what it is when you have multiple series of standards?
Yes. So these standards actually kind of all align and mesh with each other. So if I'm looking for an RI standard, so reading informational text, this lesson has been developed with some skills that meet up with that standard. And then I can grab some ISTE standards too that actually align with those standards. So I can kind of start stacking standards on top of each other, and then teaching them explicitly and assessing them with this lesson. And you saw that huge long list. I mean, it's massive what you can do with this very quick 45-minute lesson. All right, so you've got your 45 minutes here, which is perfect because my classes are 60 minutes long. So that's going to be just the amount of time that I need. So it breaks it down. You need 10 minutes for that warm up. I'm going to click on that warm up. What I love about this lesson is that it offers some really fun optional activities. So I might, if my students are prone to doing homework, I might offer them this as a homework option. So before the lesson, Common Sense Media actually directs you to maybe have the students play far-fetched facts in their digital compass. I'm going to click on that just to show you what that looks like. It is this really cute, it's so sweet. Video game essentially. And so the students pick a character to be, and then the characters go through these scenarios where they are teaching the students about, in this case, news and media literacy. So I played the news and media literacy one. It's like a choose your own adventure game. She starts off looking for an internship, and she's got a lot of choices to make around her digital citizenship as it pertains to news and media literacy. So it gets students comfortable with the language that you're going to be talking about, and again, not in a codifying way, but in a really fun kind of gamified way, get students comfortable with this topic. So that is an optional, pre-lesson thing that students could do. And then you can jump right into the warm-up. So again, I didn't have any time to prepare for my lesson that I'm teaching tomorrow. Maybe in the evening I was able to look this over, and what I see is a script. Ask the students, right? So you get right to your lesson slides. I'm going to just click on it here, and then I'll open it elsewhere because I'll show you that I've added a couple of slides myself. But they are in English and Spanish, and they open right over into your Google Drive that is associated with the account that you used to create your Common Sense Media Education account. You also have all the handouts right here. So there is a student handout for news or fake news. Again, it's in English and Spanish, and the teacher version has some suggested answers for you. So you can read through those and kind of know maybe what to expect. There's an article handout because this lesson is centered on once the students are taught some terms and become familiar with them, they're going to look at a series of articles and then analyze them. And then there is a lesson quiz at the end, and the lesson quiz is fantastic. It is in Google Forms, and so you can preview that as an educator. This is a preview of what the students are going to see, and you can walk through and see what it is that the students are going to be asked at the end of the lesson. And then you can, of course, assign it to them as a Google form. So as Jonathan said, there is a script and you can absolutely follow this script. It works really beautifully along with the slideshow. So I'm going to open the slideshow, which is right up here. And actually, if I were to be teaching this tomorrow, what I would do is open up my slideshow, and in the presenter notes, I would just copy and paste the script into the relevant slide. So when it's talking about this corn slide, you know, I think that's slide 5, right? And so I would just copy, you know, once I look through the slides and look through the script, I would copy and paste the script right into the presenter notes of the slide. And then I am ready to teach my lesson. So the slides are, again, it's just in true Common Sense Media Education fashion, they are clean and clear. So these are the slides that are created that you can teach your lesson from. This one, of course, grade 6, Finding Credible News. As you go through it, there is a script to match. It tells you exactly what to do with all of these slides. It starts with this essential question that by the end of the lesson, your students should be able to answer. And that is, how do we find credible information on the internet? And I'm not going to walk through each of these slides necessarily in order because they do match up with a script, which, you know, you can absolutely go through and read and see how that matches up with the slides. Instead, what I'm going to do is kind of shift gears a little bit and talk to you and show you how to use Pear Deck to enhance your use of the slides with your students. So Pear Deck, if you haven't used it, and I know a lot of us used it when we were in the field over the past couple of years, but it is a Google Slides add-on that makes Google Slides interactive. And it is a really great way to increase engagement when you are delivering information from a slideshow. You know, we all know that we have students who drift off into their own little worlds, and Pear Deck is a way to keep us all together and to really get 100% engagement while you are sharing information via a slide deck. So in that sense, I just think that Pear Deck is incredibly magical. And it's also very easy to use. So it is a Google Slide add-on. So what you're going to do to find Pear Deck is go here to add-ons once you are in your Google Slides. And I'm going to go to get add-ons, assuming that I don't have Pear Deck already here. And it's going to pop up this little screen. You see that I do have Pear Deck, but if I didn't have Pear Deck, or it's, you know, not showing up in the top row, you can search for apps. So you would search for Pear Deck right here, and it would take you over where all you have to do is click this blue button that for you, if you don't have Pear Deck already, would say install. So you're going to click install. It's going to install it for you. I think it asks you another question or two as you go along. But then it's you are ready to go. And so what you are doing, as you can see here, you are bringing your presentations to life with interactive questions. So we're going to see what that looks like. I'm going to show you how easy it is, because again, we are still working on teaching that lesson tomorrow. So this is an add-on with a short learning curve. So when I am ready to use Pear Deck, I've installed it. I'm just going to go to add-ons, and I'll look down my list of add-ons, and I am going to find Pear Deck for Google Slides. Oops, and I'm going to open it. And it's going to open over to the right of my slides. Let me move things around here. Okay, and everything that you need to do with Pear Deck happens right over here on the right-hand side of the screen. So you're just working from one screen. Again, it is so fast. So I'm going to hop over to slide 2 because this is a question. And so, you know, this is the question that we want our students to answer by the end of the lesson, but I want to know what they think about this question at the beginning of the lesson. So the question, how do we find credible information on the internet? And while I'm you know, beginning my presentation with my students, I want them to tell me how they find credible information on the internet. So I'm going to come over here to my Pear Deck add-on, and these are the types of questions that you can ask students. So you can ask them a question that they have to answer with text. They have to type something in. You can give them multiple choice questions. You can give them a question that they have to answer with a number. You can also, and I'm going to show you how to do this one because I love this one, you can embed a website right into the slide so that if you want students to read an article, they don't have to go out on the internet to do it, because we know that we lose them when they go out onto the internet. You can ask them a question that they have to draw an answer to, or you can create a little drag and drop activity for your students to do as well. They do have the ability here to add, or you do have ability to add audio to your slide, which is great if you want to do this presentation and maybe post it in your Google Classroom for your students who need to access this lesson asynchronously. Maybe they were absent. But I've got a essential question here that I want my students to answer. I want to know what they all think. So I'm going to click on the text one because I want them to type in the text of how they're finding credible information right now. And you'll see that it popped up that little screen. Whoop. My bar is covering this, but across the bottom now of my slide, there's that little Pear Deck bar. And so that's just alerting me to the fact as an educator that I have added a question to this slide. And I'll show you what it looks like from the student end in a second. Because this is a Google slide deck, and in order for you to use it, you end up making a copy of it and putting it into your drive. You can actually add slides and you can edit slides. So this is a slide that I've added because part of the lesson plan is to share this slide with your student about corn being a dangerous fruit that grows on a corn tree. It says it's arguably the deadliest fruit on earth, but many are unaware and they just gulp it down. People are just gulping down corn all around the world. And then of course it is comprised of the following parts. And so the lesson plan will tell you, what kind of questions to ask around this. And I grabbed one of their questions that they said, oh, talk to your students, gosh, are you surprised to read that corn could be dangerous? So I'm going to do that in an interactive way. I just made the slide very quickly by adding a couple of squares, and I'm going to go over to Pear Deck and click on Draggable, because I would like them to be able to drag a dot onto yes or no. So are you surprised to learn that corn could be dangerous? Yes or no. And they're going to have a little dot on their page. You can change the color. You can make it a different shape depending on what you need. I'm going to go with the dot because I don't have a lot of time. This lesson's for tomorrow. I'm going to update my slide. It's adding. And it's added. And now I've got this great interaction happening on this slide. And finally, I'm going to go to this slide because I love to share with my students when we're talking about credible websites and we talk about how we know that they're to be believed or that they're trustworthy. I have a great website that I like to share with them about saving the Pacific Northwest tree octopus. It is hysterical. It always gets a lot of giggles. And it is a website that can, of course, be used to analyze credibility. So I'm going to copy the address. And over here in my Pear Deck add-on, I'm going to go to website. It's going to ask for the URL, and I'm going to put that in. It's going to say, here's what that's going to look like. Just make sure that that's the website that you definitely want to share, that, we're looking at keeping everyone private and safe, and it's going to update the slide. And again, I'm going to get the little gray bar at the bottom that says, this has been Pear Decked, basically. So now I am ready to teach my lesson. I have gone through my slides. Again, I'm not going to go through the full lesson with you because you can very quickly read that script and see how this all plays out. But I'm going to Pear Deck a few more of my slides. I've just made that as a verb. And now it is the day. So time to teach my lesson. All I'm going to do is open up this slide deck that I just have sitting over in my Google Drive, and I'm going to click on Start Lesson. My students are going, and you actually have these two options, which are really lovely options, I think. So you can do a student paced mode that allows your students to work through this asynchronously. So you can share it over to your Google Classroom. And again, those absent students can still attend their lesson, or an instructor paced activity. And that's if you are doing this lesson in real time. So I'm going to click on that. Jonathan is going to be my surprise student. He did not know that, so it's a surprise. And so all students need to do is go to joinpd.com, and it's right here on the screen for them. And then they will enter in this join code, and they give you this great kind of mnemonic here. Make sure you get your letters right.
It is imperative that I learn how to type join PD, apparently, because I put the period in the wrong place. Please hold. And now my code's gone.
Oh, that's me, because I'm joining as a student as well. DVR TXC.
And I'm seeing that same screen. How am I feeling today? Pretty darn good.
So this is what students will be seeing. How are you feeling today? Feeling great. Okay. And so this is the student view here. The teacher view tells me that I have 2 students connected, and lucky duck me, because that is my entire class. So I am ready to get going. I can also share a link with my students if I need to do it that way. And there is some, there are some options happening over in the dashboard if you want to click on that and look at it, but we're going to jump into the lesson. So I'm going to start the class. So what's going to happen is the students are on their devices in my classroom, or maybe not, maybe they're hybrid. And I am in control of this presentation. So I am going to scroll through the slides on the teacher end, but it's going to change what's happening for my students on their end. And I can also project this on the big screen in my classroom as well, which I would definitely do. So we just got lots of places to look at it. So, I can talk about what I need to talk about here to introduce my students. And then on the teacher end, and maybe this is what's projected on the big screen, they're getting this question: how do we find credible information on the internet? And I would say, hey, students, I would like you to answer that question. And what they are seeing on their screens is this. So they have my slide on the left, and they have a place to put their answer here. So remember, this was a text question. So I look for .edu and .orgs. They are adding their response. And I'm going to adjust my screen just a little bit because the Zoom toolbar covers up some of what's happening here. Great. Okay, so I can see how many students have responded. So both of my students have dutifully responded to my question. I can show the responses on the big screen. So, oh, look, here's what everybody in the classroom said. We can pause and have a quick conversation about it. So again, it makes what's happening not just me reading slides to my students. They're thinking about it. We're pausing and having a little discussion. I can see exactly what my students are thinking already, which gives me a little kind of heads up as to where we're going. So I'm just going to continue on through my slides. Oh, go ahead.
So one of the things that I like, if you just go back to that slide for 1 second.
Yes.
So I taught American Studies for several years, and I discovered that I had these crazy smart young women who were uncomfortable sharing. And Pear Deck sets it up. There's a number of different ways to do it, but the anonymity of this I found was really empowering for people. So as I was looking for ways to get greater participation, raising their hand and speaking, and my classes were double sized, so 2 teachers, 50 kids, and I had some, frankly, very loud and obnoxious boys, and they would routinely kind of freak out the young women who had great things to say, and I would find that they weren't really delving into the degree I knew they could. So this, as a really simple piece of the puzzle, getting this opportunity for really thoughtful responses, but without being identified, can really amplify voices that you might not otherwise hear from. And as Kate, I think, is going to show us, there are some other ways that the participation, it doesn't operate necessarily in only this way, but an aspect of it that at first I was sort of like, oh, I want to know who's saying that, empowered those kids, and also gave me the sense of the way you might do like a thumbs up, thumbs down of how it's going in the classroom, a really good gauge or a measure of how I was doing in presenting my content. So that aspect of it is sort of embedded in it, but just to make transparent that it has this other benefit.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, like you said, you're introverted students as well who I might not raise my hand in a class, but I have a lot to offer, right? Like it makes space for all of your learners. And it helps you see who's participating. You know, if I have 13 learners in the room and I'm getting 10 responses consistently, I can kind of walk around and see, you know, what's everyone up to as well. So again, you know, we can make our way through our slideshow. I'm going to, you know, here's the corn thing. Oh my gosh, did you know that, you know, corn is so deadly? Are you surprised to read that corn could be dangerous? And again, on my student end, they are seeing this, like Jonathan mentioned, totally anonymous. They're not seeing everybody's names attached to it. They're getting their one dot and their answer. And I am shocked to hear that corn is dangerous. So I'm going to slide that over. And in my presentation, I've got both of my students responding. And so again, I can show those responses. Both of my students are shocked to hear about the dangerous nature of corn. And so we can stop and pause and talk about that Wikipedia article and what we thought about that in terms of credibility. And we'll move on to the final slide that I added a Pear Deck option to. So how do you identify the credibility thing? So how do we know that a website is credible? And that is where I put the tree octopus. This is what the students are seeing. I love Pear Deck for so many reasons, but this is one of them because my students are juniors and I lose them off on the, you know, if I was like, oh, click on this link and, you know, or Google Pacific Northwest tree octopus, I'll see them days later. So this puts my slide here on the left and the article here that the students can just scroll right through. So I can say we're going to pause for 10 minutes or whatever, and I would like you to read about the tree octopus, and then we're going to talk about the credibility of this website. So definitely check out like what you see on this website, connect that to how you told me, you know, that you are looking for credibility, and then we can pause again and have that conversation before we continue on with our slides and our session. So I just did those few for you. The slideshow does have 13 slides, but I would just kind of work my way through engaging in those questions with my students and then those conversations. And that's going to create a really rich experience for them. And like Jonathan mentioned, it's going to bring in voices that you might not hear from otherwise. So let's say that and there are other things, there are other features, and I'm actually going to share some resources with you that will take you kind of deeper into these features. I'm not going to do all of them, but you can lock their screens so they have to stop answering or moving their dot around if that gets a little too distracting for them. There are lots of things that you can do. So I'm going to end this session. It allows me to name it. And what it's going to do is save this session with all of the student answers over in my Google Drive. And then I, as the teacher, will have, I've got my takeaways. I will have a way to go back and look at how all of the students answered so that I can really get a very clear sense of, do we need to continue with another lesson around the same idea, or does it seem like they have it and we're ready to move on? Pear Deck is a freemium option. So there is a free basic level for you. It does almost everything that I showed you today, except for, I believe it's the drag and drop option is in the paid, yes, the draggable and the drawing responses are in the paid options. So if that's something that you want, and quite honestly, if your school has the funds for it, I say go for it because those are fun options. And it offers a lot of other options. Of course, you can add your audio to the slide. You can provide feedback to individual students during the lesson, and you've got a shared teacher dashboard to share your session controls and your insight with other educators. So if you've got your ed techs, your paraprofessionals, your co-teachers, that can all be shared with them as well. And then of course, at the district level, if there are a lot of teachers who want this, then you can move up to that district level as well. I am going to put a link to these resources that I have curated for you around Pear Deck. So if you have a little more time than that one afternoon that you were given to create this whole lesson, you can dive in here. So Pear Deck has resources that are already created for you. So the first link goes to Pear Deck's teaching resources. There are quick videos to watch. There are webinars to watch. There are sessions to sign up for. There's everything that you might need as an educator to use Pear Deck. There are a lot of things that Pear Deck does that I didn't necessarily show you today. So lots to explore there. Pear Deck also has help videos. So if I just need a quick tutorial to figure out how to set Pear Deck up for that lesson tomorrow, I might go right over to their help videos, which are very fast. And Pear Deck now has a partnership with Flipgrid. And so there's a beautiful integration between Flipgrid and Pear Deck. And so if you want your students using both of those tools together, they do have that partnership, and now it's all, I mean, it just is seamless. And I'm a huge Flipgrid fan, so I highly recommend checking that out too. The final thing I want to show you that I didn't add to this lesson is that in the add-on, they do have a template library. I love this because we all know how important SEL is in our classrooms, and I think that this really helps speak to that piece. So Pear Deck has a lot of templates for educators. You'll find that in you'll find those in the resources that I'm going to share with you. But right even here in the add-on itself, at the beginning of a lesson, if I want to add on, oh, maybe I asked them to play that video game version. So what did you learn from the homework? I'd like to add that slide, and that's an interactive slide. And I'm going to want them to do that before we hop into the lesson. And you can see it's a text-based, so students will be writing their response to that during the lesson, because this lesson is about 60 minutes long. I'm going to want them to do a little stretch break. Great, here's my stretch break slide, but there are lots of other options, like, do you feel comfortable sharing your thoughts out loud right now? So lots of great check-ins. So I'm going to have them do a little stretch break down here, and then at the end you can get reflections and exit tickets. Again, these are already made for you, so why not use them? I love this one, which is reflect on today's learning. What did you like? What didn't you like? What was easy? What was hard? I'm going to put that right down at the end because everybody has to do that before we leave for the day. And I've got a nice sense of how my class is feeling. Again, that took me 45 seconds, maybe. And so I just highly suggest using Pear Deck, you know, especially when that kind of highlighted resources happens to be a slide deck. So as I have said, I will put this resource slide, a link to this in the description so that you can try this out yourself. If you want a thinking partner around other ways to use Pear Deck, or you want to do a deeper dive with Pear Deck and a human being, please do reach out to me, and I'm happy to meet with you via Zoom, and we can go through Pear Deck and look at everything that it can do and how it might enhance your lessons. But that's how I would use it to enhance our lesson for the 6th grade around finding credible news. So thank you so much for tuning in today, and we will see you next week.